Lovers Quarrel. It's a long, sustained quarrel.
What's going on, world?
Hey, everybody.
It's your guy, TJ, Mr. New Cool.
And it's your girl, Dani, your really recovered Robin. Because I'm better.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I know you're creating life, and what's the other things you say?
Making a whole
growing
human.
elbows and
eyeballs and brains and
yes,
everything.
Forgive me that God did not make me a woman so I can have that.
And I beat COVID.
Yeah, no, I'm happy about that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's why I said, that's why I'm really recovered. So, because the last time we were on here, I was feeling horrible, not like the worst, but like 50% level of horrible, and I still came on here. But anywho, welcome to another episode of Lovers Quarrel, y'all. As always, I'm your girl Dani, and this is my husband TJ, and we are back. We are better, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, now that we both have gone past our quarantine phase and are now feeling better. I'm back. TJ's back to normal. I'm back to pregnant normal. And yeah, this is another episode. So, again, apologies for the inconsistency, but life happens, our health.
Now you can use it. She's growing eyeballs, and you didn't get the joke.
What? I didn't.
I'm saying now you can use the sympathy of your growing life and everything else. That's you were apologizing for us not being consistent, and I said now you can use it.
Okay, it didn't translate.
Yeah,
but yes,
as you get more pregnant, you don't understand humor more. I get it.
Well, mom brain. But again, your humor isn't always the best. So that's neither here nor there. But guys, listen, if you are new to us, welcome. If this is your second time listening, welcome back. If this is your third or more time listening, you are family, or as TJ likes to call you, you are a lover.
Hey, y'all.
And you know that you can follow us on Twitter at Lovers Quarrel 7. You can email us at loversquarrelshow@gmail.com with your thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns. And also you can follow us on Instagram at Lovers Quarrel Show. And how are you, my good sir, now that we've gotten all that out the way?
I'm doing well, Take it one day at a time, give yourself grace, and you just, try not to question the man upstairs. I just try to follow the lead and the thing that he gives me, so.
Mm-hmm. Y'all, I want you to know that I'm looking at TJ right now, and from the eyebrows up, TJ looks like the boy I met all those years ago, because he has cornrows in his hair right now. He's grown his hair out, and he's got some, not too bad to hang time either. I'm not going to sit here and shade him or anything like that. And he got, his hair braided out and everything. And this is like the boy I met in 2003. Wow. 03? That's wild. 2003. And I just, but he didn't have all the facial hair.
We met in 2003. We got married in 2013.
10 years later. And then we had
Who would have thought that?
Not when I first laid eyes on you.
Exactly. I met a Queens woman, a Queens girl.
You're welcome, nigga. You're welcome. Whatever.
Disgusting.
So
beneath me.
Disgusting.
But like I said, even back then, I believe in the man upstairs. I just follow his lead. I was like, God, why would you send her from Queens? But she goes to school in Harlem. God, this does not make sense. But I said, you know what?
I'm the best thing that ever happened to this Queens woman.
I said, you know what, God?
The best thing.
You don't make no mistakes.
You wouldn't have this life with a Harlem chick.
We're not going to disrespect my Harlem women, all right? So, one of your best friends is from Harlem.
Oh, yeah.
She's a doctor.
Okay.
Name a Queens woman who's a doctor.
It's mad Queens woman.
No, that you know.
But I know. I don't know. Just because I don't know one person. I know a physician's assistant from Queens. And that's something like a doctor.
Okay.
They can write scripts.
That's cool.
Okay.
You got it.
Anyway. So let's go ahead and jump into our elevator for the week. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I can go first.
All right. Are you going up or down?
I'm going up.
Going up.
You actually sound good for you having a week off and all that. Like you hit
I didn't
that.
take a week off.
You hit that.
Thank you.
My girl. I'm just going up to this week I got to see my brother, my mother, my niece and nephew are staying with us for the week. So it's like, I get to be with my family. Mm-hmm. So I'm just happy about that. I'm happy about the times that we got to spend together. Seeing my brother, again, me and him speak all the time, but just to be able to see him and like laugh and joke, and it was very like special, Mm-hmm. I have a dope big brother. Shout out to you, Aunt. Oh, check out his podcast, Relationship DNA.
Yes.
But this pandemic has shown me to like really appreciate the things in your life mm-hmm. that you have. Mm-hmm. And I'm like really appreciative of my brother. Mm-hmm. And I may not always say it or, but like that's my guy. You know what I mean? Like I look up to him and, a lot of who I am and aspire to be, a lot of the lessons that I learned from him, what to do, what not to do. Mm-hmm. But, I got that from my big brother. Mm-hmm. So, he's just a dope individual, and just be able to spend some time with him, and, it took me back to my younger self, mm-hmm. and it felt like home, so.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that they were here too, and that they'll be back. And I'm really excited to spend the week with our niece and nephew. They're 16 and 18, and the fact that they, want to hang with their aunt and uncle. And
I'm cool, so.
I'm cool too. Fuck you, me.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, and hang out with and they're being great big cousins to Tatum, and just helping out around here, and just doing all of that is really appreciated. So I'm looking forward to spending some like uninterrupted time with them, and giving them the opportunity, let their hair down, and they still got to go to school, do their school and everything else, but just the the ability to be able to do this during the school year, and just hang out with each other, but because they're in school online, have these opportunities to do this has been really just a blessing in disguise through some of this stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to the time that we get to spend with them, and that they get to spend with their little cousin. I am going to continue going up on this elevator, and my elevator for this week is that we hired a doula. And
you said it right the first time.
Okay, I hired a doula to assist us with the birthing and labor process this time around with this new baby. And I'm really excited about that. She and I had a conversation today, when we're recording this afternoon, and really started to kind of talk through like my previous experiences with pregnancy, labor, and delivery with Tatum, and then like what I am looking and hoping to get out of this, experience, this relationship, what she does, how she facilitates and how she supports. And then also like, how like the logistical things, like when we would meet, setting, schedules and stuff like that. And then also just like how she can, strategies and tools. So, to be a little bit more transparent about it, is when I had Tatum, we took the classes and stuff like that, but I didn't take any like Lamaze or breathing classes or anything like that. I didn't take any like birthing classes. So, we got to the hospital. Well, let me say this. I didn't go into labor. Tatum was late. She was chilling. I went for like an ultrasound because I was almost a week late. She was the fluid in my amniotic sac was getting low. They were like, we got to induce you. So it was kind of the thing of like, I didn't like experience going into labor on my own. I didn't experience, of course, then I started having contractions and stuff. I did get an epidural. I did have, I got to 5 centimeters, but then after 5 centimeters, I just did not progress any further. And then they ended up coming in and telling me they had to get a C-section. So I didn't experience like active labor. And active labor is when it's like 5 minutes apart, a minute long, and like they're happening like constantly or whatever. I did not get to that point of labor, and because I had to have a C-section. And even though in general I had like a good experience, like but there were parts of my birthing experience that I found kind of traumatic. And I was like, you know, it was some of my biggest fears realized. It was, you know, before, you know, TJ always makes fun of me because he was like, whatever you're like, you say you don't want is exactly what's going to happen. And that did happen. But it was a thing of like, before I had Tatum, I had never had surgery. I had never been admitted to the hospital. I had never had stitches. And so I went from like 0 to 100 with all of that. And then I also like I was like somebody's mother at the end of this, you know? So saying that all to say, like, I really do want to try this time to have what's called a VBAC. And a VBAC is a vaginal birth after cesarean. And once upon a time, if you had one C-section, that meant any other children that followed had to also be C-section. That is no longer the case. And if your obstetrician deems you eligible, you can have a VBAC. You can attempt to have one. And that is something I want to go for. So I felt like hiring a Black woman doula was important for me because I really wanted to have someone on my side who was an expert and in this process and really could support me and TJ as we go through it. And now because of COVID, like, you know, normally they would be able to be in the hospital, but that may or may not, depending on what's going on in September, could be the case. So I really want us to like I'm really looking forward to these opportunities for her to teach us the best strategies and tools and techniques to bring labor on when we're ready to have it, to deal with contraction pains, to stay calm, to help, you know, make it possible for me to have this VBAC as opposed to having another C-section, you know. Now, granted, I've made my peace with whatever happens, but there's no harm in trying to set yourself up for success, you know. And so I know that was kind of long-winded or whatever, but I'm really excited about it, and that's kind of why I hired a doula. And I'll be more brief, is we find out the baby's sex this week.
We do.
And we did not do that with Tatum. We waited until the very end, until she came out, to find out if we were having a boy or girl. And so this time we're doing something a little different. And we're going to have a little mini, you know, gender reveal this weekend. But TJ and I go on Thursday. This is the only appointment that he's like allowed to come to before I give birth because of COVID. And so he wanted to find out just he and I. And so I'm like totally 100% on board with that, because then we get this one kind of little private moment just for me and him where we get to know before the rest of the world. And then on Saturday, we will let the rest of the world know. So be on the lookout. We will share that announcement with you all on Saturday. And with that, I yield, because I know I just talked a whole lot. But that is our elevator for the week. And now we are going to go ahead and head on over to our relationship tip of the week. So you want me to go or you want me to go? Because I feel like I just occupied a whole lot of talk time. Excuse me.
Surely did.
So why don't you go first so we can chop it up? People get tired of my voice.
My relationship tip is choose who you marry wisely.
That's pretty simple and straightforward.
You know, I think people get married for the wrong reasons a lot of times, and I just, as I've gotten older and as I've, you know, like being married and seeing, you know, other marriages not work or, you know, issues and stuff like that, like getting married is not gonna save a relationship.
Word.
You know, just because you and somebody are growing older, you shouldn't just marry that person. You know what I mean? Like,
or you're used to each other.
Yeah, like this is something that you're gonna be doing for the rest of your life. So it's kind of like you need to choose the person who, when you hate them, you love them.
Yeah.
Like through the good, through the bad, is the person that you can't wake up without, and it's okay. Like, our generation needs to like break down the pressures that you have to be married or you have to live your life a certain way. Like,
I agree.
So choose who you marry wisely.
Well, thank you for that. And my relationship tip for this week is to use affective statements. Affective being with the A, not an E. And affective statements are what we teach them in school to our like kids and things like that, but this is something that's really helpful that I feel like we that our like couples therapist has had us trying to use with each other, because you get a lot further if you explain to somebody else how something makes you feel or how it affects you versus you just pointing the blame at the other person. Well, you did this. Well, you did that. You. Because what automatically happens when people do that? They get defensive. But if you talk about how a person's words, intentions, or actions made you feel, and you say like, I feel like this, or I don't like that, or I feel as though when this happens, X, Y, Z, not to say it's always going to get the response you're looking for, but you have a better chance of conveying to another person what it is you're feeling. And that leads to, greater understanding. And in some relationships, that so very rarely happens because we're so quick to point the blame at others. Like, ain't nothing wrong with me. Or, yeah, I'm upset. I'm angry. But it's because you did X, you did this, that, and the other. Versus saying, like, when you do this, I feel this way. And this is why I have an issue with it. And, I think that this is a thing that will save relationships, save headaches and heartaches from people, and open your eyes to, like, understanding somebody else better. So, anyone in a relationship, any of the ships, quite honestly, friendship, kinship, family ship, any of those things, relationship, use affective statements. So, don't always be so quick to point the finger. And with that being said, we are going to transition to our, I'm about to say relationship tip. We just did that. To our Black History fact, because we still are doing Black History 365, even when TJ and I aren't here. And mine's pretty brief. So at the day of this episode drops, which is May 3rd, on May 3rd in 1967, Black students seized the finance building at Northwestern University to demand a Black-oriented curriculum and campus reform. They hijacked or took over the building. They shut it down. They locked themselves in to demand more Black-centered curriculum and campus reform. And that just stuck out to me as such a dope revolutionary thing to be doing in order to enact change. So that is my Black History fact for this episode.
So mine is 73 years ago, May 3rd, 1948, Supreme Court ruled in Shelley v. Kramer that federal and state courts could not enforce restrictive covenants which barred persons from owning or occupying property because of their race.
Wow.
So the story is that in 1945, Shelley purchased a house in St. Louis, Missouri. And at the time of the purchase, they were unaware of a restrictive covenant that had been in place since 1911. And Kramer was her neighbor, and her neighbor was suing to get her out of there. But 73 years ago, they ruled in Shelley's favor. And, it's kind of crazy when you see that stuff because, like, I was reading a book, and Malcolm X's father, when he purchased his house in Michigan, it was like redlining. And, I feel like
they find any and every way to keep us down.
Yeah, so.
Can't own land, can't have a bank account, can't do this, can't do that. I'm done. Well, thank you for your Black History fact, and because I had never heard of this one. And shout out to the Shelley family for fighting the good fight. And next, last but certainly not least, before we get into our quarrel, we have TJ's attempt to make me look bad in his word of the week.
I'm not trying to make you look bad. You're like the smartest person I know, so I just want to be able to, make sure that I'm able to keep you the smartest person.
Oh, you just trying to make sure I level up.
No, I'm trying to make sure that you stay at the level.
Stay at the level. All right. I appreciate it. I like the way you're framing it. So what is your word of the week, my good sir?
My word of the week is bedraggled.
Bedraggled? What does that mean?
Dirty and disheveled.
Disheveled?
Disheveled.
So TJ looks bedraggled when he is walking around the house.
feel like you just cursed at me.
I'm just playing. You don't look what's it called? Dirty and disheveled?
Disheveled.
Yeah. No, you don't look that. You just look very comfortable. As do I.
As you are.
Bedraggled. Okay. BEDRAGGLED.
You got it correct.
Woo woo and I'm smart. And my baby smart.
Well, if it's a girl.
That we already talked about that. The science on that is like they've oversimplified the science on that about where children get their intelligence from.
That's crazy.
Let's just hope that they get the best parts. That Tatum and whoever this is get the best parts of you and I, intelligence wise. Your aptitude for technology, my aptitude for everything else, and
that's what we're gonna do. Got you. Hear you loud and clear.
Nah, I'm fucking with you, babe. You have sports knowledge. You're like the best person I know at mental math. So, because I stay fucking up numbers sometimes. Can't win them all. But I won this fucking vocabulary quiz. So.
I don't know problems.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, listen, that was our word of the week. So use bedraggled in a sentence this week to make yourself feel smarter.
Why would that make them smarter?
Because any opportunity to expand your vocabulary can make you smarter. That's the whole point of your segment, initially anyway. Right?
Yeah.
Was to improve your vocabulary.
You're right.
So, when you're right, you're right. But with that being said, as always, it is now time for most people's favorite part of the show, which is our quarrel. And we will start with a conversation that TJ and I had earlier today, or earlier in the week. And it has to do with the attraction scene at Disneyland. And so, basically, in short, there's a Snow White attraction at Disneyland, and apparently there were complaints or concern about the scene that was added. And the scene that was added was basically, if anyone's not familiar with Snow White, at the end of the movie, you know how she's fallen into a deep slumber after she ate the apple, and then the prince comes and kisses her awake. And the concern or the complaint that the article was kind of discussing was around the concept of consent, because she's saying that Snow White was unable to give consent for the prince to kiss her, so that's kind of sending the wrong message. So do you want to start off with your take on it?
I think it's stupid. So it's a fucking it's a folktale. Like it's a cartoon. Like it's something that people grew up in. It's something that we've been doing. And I hate this new culture. Like everything is wrong. Like next they're gonna say Tom and Jerry is bad, and Batman, he's a vigilante, so we should ban him. And like everything is just wrong. And people are just looking for anything and any reason to attack stuff. And like I feel like that's like people are sexualizing it. Like they're making it more than what it is.
So it is a kiss, so that is like an intimate act, but
okay, and little kids. So a little kid's gonna see that and be like, "Oh, it's intimate, so let me just." So if a child is dancing and they're not dancing, I'm trying to think. Like people over sexualize. So if a young woman is wears a tank top and she's busty, even though she's young, it's too sexual for the adults. So it's a problem. Like that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like this thing is becoming more about the individual. Like if you have a problem with seeing that story or whatever, he had to kiss her to wake her up, right? That's how the story was written.
Yeah.
So the only way she could wake up was by being kissed by the prince.
So true love's kiss. Yeah.
So what he should have said was, "Hey, Snow, listen, I know you can't hear me, but can I get a kiss?"
So obviously, like, this film came out, I looked it up, it came out in 1937. So obviously we're talking about a time frame where consent and all that stuff like that wasn't a conversation. And what I was saying to TJ earlier about it was that, on one part of me understands, like, this was the ending scene in the movie. It's true to the movie. It's a movie that's, a Disney classic, depending on who you ask. And so it's just kind of depicting what already exists. It's not like they're creating something new and adding it to this particular attraction at Disneyland. But what I also thought was interesting was, like, when I read the article, was I found it kind of interesting that, like, that they would choose to add the scene. Like, so it wasn't like it was always a part of the attraction, because there are some attractions at Disneyland, Disney World, and different, amusement parks or whatever. But let's say with the Disney one, since they have the movies, there are specific attractions that have been around for decades. And so they have scenes in them or depictions in them that are now probably poor in taste or problematic, and so much so that they have removed them. Because there's the one, like, the Song of the South or whatever, which is like some attraction, I think, at Disney World or maybe Disneyland, but one of them. And they removed it because of kind of like they had some, like, racist, like, Jim Crow type of, like, references in this attraction. And then they mentioned something else in the article. So what I thought was kind of surprising was, like, on one hand, I know that it's just, like, it's in the movie. It is what it is. But on the other hand, I thought it was kind of, like, surprising that they would be like, in 2021, oh, let's add this scene into it, knowing that there's, like, a whole big conversation around, like, depictions of, like, consent and stuff like that in our country, in our world. So it just seemed like, why would we add that out of all things?
That's a part of the story.
Which I said I understand, but I'm looking at it from two lenses.
So should we not have should she not have 7 dwarves? Should we change their names? So to the 7 little people?
I mean, listen, I'm not saying that somebody might not have take issue with the depiction of the dwarves,
should
but at the same time,
where
the dwarves made, like, where the dwarves, like, the 7 dwarves, where they mocked or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to be super PC about it.
No, well, I mean,
but I'm just saying. But I'm just trying to say, like, I understand that, like, sometimes people or society, whatever, sometimes they take the political correctness, like, way too far or whatever. But what I will say is that if you are going to show these things because they're, like, historically accurate, or that's the way that the fairy tale played out or whatever, like, maybe it's a thing of, like, us having a responsibility as parents, as families, as people, to still be like, yes, this was a fairy tale, this is what happened or whatever, but, in the real world, you don't want to let somebody kiss you without you getting permission, or you don't kiss somebody without getting their permission.
Again, you can have that conversation and still understand that it's a story, but that's the issue. The issue is that parents don't want to parent. People don't want to be accountable for the things that they want. If a child is doing bad, they're like, why? Like, parents send their kids to school, and then they don't check their homework or nothing like that. And they're like, well, it's the teacher's fault. The teacher should have made sure that they did whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, no one takes accountability, and I'm just tired of it. Like, for real, they might as well just put a disclaimer on everything. Before you play rap music, there should be a disclaimer.
I mean, there is. It's a parental advisory.
Nope, that's not enough. That is not enough.
Well, but, the thing is, like, again, don't get me wrong. Like, I understand, like, it's about, like, some people take it too far, and some people try to put the responsibility on media and society to raise their kids, and that is not the responsibility of media and society. But we can also, to an extent, and maybe not with Snow White, maybe not with this example, but there are things of the past that we watch, and then when you look back on it, that, seemed fine when you watch it at the time, but then when you look back on it, you're like, ooh, this would really not make the cut in this current day and age, because people have more, a better understanding about what's not okay about that. And, like, two things can be true. There could be absolutely people who out there who are like overzealous PC police, like, have an issue with every single thing or whatever. But then there are also people out there who, just because it's an inconvenience to them to have to, like, reevaluate the things that they thought were fine, or have to acknowledge that some of the things that we grew up on were problematic now, it, you know, some people don't want to necessarily take the time to say, damn, that's really like, that really wasn't a good look. Like there's stuff that you and I watched and we'd be like, this would not fly in 2020. And not simply because it's like people are overzealous, but because it truly was a problematic thing.
Okay, that, like what? Because you said it's something that we can.
I'm trying to remember what we were watching like a movie or something like that, and we were just like, this wouldn't necessarily fly in 2020. Of course now it's escaping me right now. But
I understand. Yeah, in 2020, something that was done back then probably would not fly. That's okay. I will understand that. But now, should we just ban all those movies?
No, we should.
Birth of a Nation, the white KKK movie. It's one of the nation's, like, one of the best movies ever created and all this other shit.
Well, it's a historical film in a sense that, like, it has historical implications. It's not, like, something that people still... Like, people might show it as, like, as a way of just showing, like, racism in Hollywood and stuff like that and the things that it depicted. But it's not shown, like, oh, this is a classic. At least not among, you know, mainstream media, I should say. But what I'm saying, though, is that, like, is it really... It's important that we have the conversations. We have to have the conversations amongst each other as family, as friends, and then also especially with our young people, especially with our kids about why stuff is wrong or right. But I guess the question comes in, though, is that are there some things in media and in entertainment or even just in general in life, like certain practices where, yes, that was okay back then, but now it's not. So it's like, it's like you can acknowledge it, but then at the same time, it's like, do we go the quote unquote extra mile and still represent those things in like attractions or in media or in society? Like we know that they're problematic.
If that's the story, that's the story.
Mm-hmm.
So are we just gonna recreate the story?
I mean, people do.
That's the only way that you could do it. People
do that sometimes. That has happened in media and film and stuff like that.
But is it right?
I mean, if it's, I think in some cases, like if it's more appropriate than, or more, you know, more in tune with today's, you know, the values and beliefs. And like
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was in 1937.
I said that.
I'm sorry. I'm just realizing that. So 1937, and they're still showing it because again, it's a child's movie and it's a fairy tale. And now we're saying, wait, let's talk about consent. Like, how do you turn a children's movie into something about consent?
Because a lot of children's films and TV shows and things like that cover topics, or kids you look at those things and sometimes use that as a guide or a way to especially if they don't have anyone talking to them, they use it as a way to live their lives, or sometimes, or to say like, this must be okay because it happened in the movies. People do that all the time. My favorite movie in the world is The Fifth Element, right? And that came out in 97. So that was 50 years after Snow White, right? And there's a scene in the movie where Bruce Willis tries to kiss Mila Jovovich's character. She's asleep, or she passed out or whatever. And she literally picks, as soon as he does it, she picks up the gun, she puts it to his head, and she says in her language, basically, never without my permission. And she's pissed at him. And he was like, I'm sorry. That was progression, right? Because basically that was a
How was it progression?
Progression in the sense that this was a moment of like, she was saying, you didn't have my consent.
Okay.
So
we're talking about an adult movie.
Uh-huh.
But again, Snow White whole story is that she's going to be woken up by true love, by the person that kisses her.
Mm-hmm.
Why does the prince kiss her? Does he know that that's his true love? And like,
he comes upon her in the forest. She's in this glass coffin, and he's like, he does what a lot of princes in movies back then did, which is like, I'm going to kiss it. That happened with Sleeping Beauty. He kisses her to wake from true love's kiss, like that, because that was the whole stipulation, that the only thing that could wake her is true love's kiss. I presume that I actually...
Like, to me, even that's the underlying story. You need your true love. So if you're not someone's true love, you shouldn't be kissing them anyway. To me, that is the story.
Yeah. They take, I mean, it was for the times, yes.
No, what I'm trying to say is that you could show that today, and you could tell, I could tell Tatum, the only reason why she woke up is because that's the person that they truly love each other. And that's the only time you should be kissing somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we are taking something that is innocent and that is fantasy, and we're sexualizing it, and we're turning it into something bigger. Like I said, there's reports that parents need to ask their infants for permission to change their diapers.
And so that is something I felt like is excessive. Because
how is that excessive?
Because you're talking about someone who can't. You're talking about an infant.
And we're talking about an animated movie where the whole premise is that the only way that somebody can be woken up when they're poisoned is by a true kiss.
So with your infant or a toddler example, that to me is different because now what I'll say is this: you're talking about an infant. You're talking about somebody who can't verbalize, can't speak, communicate, or whatever, but you are the adult responsible for their health and safety. So this is a hygiene issue. This is something like, even if you ask them, you're talking about a 6-month-old, you can't say, do I have permission to wipe your butt? It's nothing like they can answer or anything like that because
I know, but what I was saying, that's where we are going as a society. We're becoming so fucking stupid that common sense isn't common sense anymore.
And what I was saying to you about like a toddler, like a child that's maybe like Tatum's age is, I was saying I can see it's still a hygiene issue. So ultimately,
it's a hygiene issue?
Yes, because if you don't help a toddler properly wipe themselves, they could have like diaper rash or they can have bacteria and stuff like that. So it's a hygiene issue. When it comes to hygiene issues, those things are kind of like non-negotiables. But as far as like this has to get done. All right, rather than that you're gonna fight me tooth and nail, or you're gonna be okay with it as a 3-4-year-old. But what I'm saying though is that I offer to you is like a different perspective on that, like because it could seem at the first glance like super stupid, but it could be a way to start to like model or like give examples to little kids in a kind of like a digestible format of what like body autonomy is. Like people should ask you their permission before they touch you or before they come near you, especially your private parts, because when we leave our children in the care of others and God forbid anything happens, at least, if they're being touched in a manner that's not for cleaning up purposes, for hygiene purposes, if you're at a daycare and the teacher is cleaning up the child because they had an accident, that's different than if somebody is trying to touch them inappropriately in those same places or whatever, and if they're not asking and stuff. So again, it might seem silly, it might seem extra, but it could be, again, if done in a not like overzealous way, it could be an opportunity to teach like consent and body autonomy, because ultimately, at the end of the day, at one point or another, all children become young boys and girls who become young men and young women who become men and women, and they need to know that they have body autonomy. They need to know that they have control over who and what touches them or doesn't touch them. And if you can start that young in teaching them in these like kind of relatable situations, like using the bathroom, because that's all I'm saying is like, I understand what you're saying too, as far as like it being like, sometimes it could be excessive, but there's also, sometimes there is like a nugget of like good things coming from some of these examples or whatever, but sometimes they're portrayed as being like super excessive, and sometimes they flat out are.
It's a fucking fairy tale story.
I understand that.
And all right, so all right, let's sit down. Okay, so he kissed her without consent. Bad guy. Rewrite the story for me.
So I don't know. Maybe it's that he gives her. I have no idea. I'm not a
but you
a writer or anything.
You agree
like
with it, so
no, I didn't say I agree with it. I said I see it from both. I could see kind of like from both ways. I said I found it. If anything, I said to you earlier, I was like, I can see why this would be like considered excessive. Or I said on one hand, I could understand that the scene is how the movie went, so it's in alignment with that. And I said the only thing I would ask, and I didn't really say I flat out agreed with the article, but I said I just have a question as to why they would think, in the climate that we live in to an extent, why it would make sense for them to add that now. Or maybe they were aware of that and they were like, okay, well, it's still true to the story, so we're going to add it regardless of whatever the PC people or police, whatever you want to call it, think. So that was my initial statement was, it is the story, and I understand that. And I like, if Tatum were to ever watch Snow White, I would have the conversation, because she has asked me about boys and girls kissing before, and she was like, and I'm like, that's
Oh, this is the first I'm ever hearing about that. So
she asked me the other day. We were laying in bed, and we were laying in bed.
So the other day, and then there's still enough time for you to say, "Hey, babe, this is something that came up."
Well, it only came back up to my mind because we're having this conversation. Because I said to her, I was like, yeah, boys kiss girls, girls kiss boys. I'm like, sometimes boys and boys kiss, sometimes girls and girls kiss. I said, but you always, people have to always ask. I said something to the effect of like, people have to always get permission to kiss, or you want to make sure that it's okay.
Yeah, well, just going forward, if we're going to have those type of conversations, I would like to know about it. As soon as you hear about it, that should have been a text message to me. Because again, if you're going to tell her boys and boys kiss, girls and girls kiss, and all this other stuff, like, to me, that's a conversation that me and you should have had first. That's not a conversation that you just...
What was just the fact that I said boys and boys kiss and girls kiss, or that just I said yes, boys and girls kiss sometimes.
Just talking about the whole kissing, yeah, like just the whole thing. I mean, but again, boys and girls, even with that, like you have to teach kids about that, and now we're opening up something else bigger than just allowing her to be a kid.
Well, I think I was saying that more so because that way we can, like, I was just kind of saying, like, yes, all types of people kiss because she will be exposed at some point or other to all those things. And it was a very brief, like, 2-minute conversation, and then we went back to watching Teen Titans. And so that's why I can respect it.
So it's brief to you.
No.
It's brief to you. It's not brief to me.
I understand.
And the fact that it's like, so if we didn't have this conversation right now, I would have never known this.
You would have known it if it came up in our dialogue, but we're having this dialogue right now, so I'm using it as an example. But I can apologize for that, and I wasn't trying to do it. I wasn't trying to keep anything from you. I wasn't trying to, whatever. I wasn't trying to do anything of the sort. It was just like, it was so like in passing, because then she went right back to whatever she was doing. So I didn't make a thing out of it, because it's like sometimes if you make something a big deal, then it becomes a big deal. When, so do you remember when we went this has happened like last year when me and Tatum would go for walks or whatever, and the horses that are like up the street, and they're male horses, and their penis was out. And so she was like, what is that? And I was like, it's a penis. And she was like, what's a penis? And I was like, well, you know how, so she understands that she has a vagina. And I said that. I understand that. And so,
and you know what happened? When you came home, you told me right then and there. It wasn't something that I had to be pissing or my penis had to be out for you to be like, oh, Tatum asks about penises too.
Okay, so it was an honest mistake.
Okay.
It wasn't like, that's my thing. It's an honest mistake, TJ.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm doing it to be secretive or clandestine or anything like that. It's not like I'm keeping any conversation that has to do with romance or sexuality or sex or anything like that comes up with Tatum or genitalia. I'm keeping it from you. It just has to do with...
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, if it's not important to you at the time, then I won't know. It's something like you need reminders for you to remember about conversations with our child.
So you remember to have every, like...
If Tatum was talking to me about kissing, I would have brought it up with you, because these are important things and milestones and well, not necessarily milestones, but these are important things that parents should know. So, hey, just giving you a heads up, Tatum asked about kissing, so that way TJ's aware that she's thinking about that.
Okay,
so that
I understand that.
That's what I'm saying.
But, and I apologize. It was literally an honest mistake.
I got you.
I apologize.
Yep, I got you.
Okay, then. So, back to what we were saying. We have this, we have this dynamic in our society where sometimes things are like, things are a stretch as far as like what needs to be.
Not necessarily. Obviously, like at the end of the point, we live in a world where anybody and everyone can feel away, so it doesn't even matter.
Well, but
can kids still say your mama jokes, or is that too far too? Or like what can you and what can't you do anymore? Like,
I mean, people can and can't.
I don't want to hug people anymore. Nope, fuck that. Don't even, like, the people that I fuck with, I gotta be like, hey, is it okay if I hug you now? Like, cause consent, right? You gotta get consent every time.
But that's the thing. Like, it's like you don't want to live at too far on the end of either spectrum of the spectrum, right?
I hate it here.
And so it's a thing. Like, I don't know why it's so. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and maybe it's just who I am, but it's just like, it's not difficult for me to understand when people do take it too far in either way, in either direction, where it's like, I'm stuck in my ways, this is how I grew up, so this is fine, it's not that big of a deal, to people being like, no, everything is wrong, this is not politically correct. I can see it for what it is and call it out for what it is, but still say like there's a place in the middle where like these things exist, and some things do need to change and should change, and some things are just kind of like, and some things can be out of pocket. So
again, you say that it should change, and all I want to ask is the people who's saying that they need to ask for consent, rewrite the fucking story.
Okay, so maybe
how do you rewrite the fucking story? So now. The next thing, should we not have witches anymore? Should we not have villains anymore in cartoons and stuff like that? Should everything just be peachy clean? Like, everything just got to be, like, nice? Like,
no, everything doesn't have to be nice. There's lots of messages that come, like, difficult topics that are covered in...
Should the Powerpuff Girls no longer fight villains anymore? Because...
There's a lot of difficult conversations that can be addressed and covered through children's movies and films and TV shows and stuff like that. Like, but and my thing is this, is that we've watched Disney, Pixar, all these movie, like kids companies or whatever. We've watched them progress from like a Snow White to like a movie like Up, a movie like Coco, a movie like, what's another like really good one? Any of them.
I know, but we could find negatives in all those movies. This is like
in like Soul and so like but what's negative about Coco? That's where he went to his Coco's the Mexican.
I don't. Okay, I did not, or if I did see, I fell asleep. I don't remember. I know everyone said it was sad because something sad happened. Oh, what's like the little kid did something bad. Like my thing is like we could find something wrong in anything.
We can, but. I think, but
so
my thing
Aladdin lied to Jasmine. Like
they changed. Okay,
that's a problem.
They did change something in Aladdin. That's a great example. In the opening sequence of Aladdin, when they're singing that song Arabian Nights, right? Okay. And there's a line that he sings where he was like talking about Agrabah, talking about the middle being whatever, and he was like, "It's barbaric, but hey, it's home." In like other versions of it, they updated and they changed it because they were like that was disrespectful to like Middle Eastern people because they were calling them barbaric, and so they did change it.
Okay.
And so like, my thing is somebody had an issue, and that was in the early 90s. Okay. That came out in the early 90s. So sometimes people do make changes.
Okay. So again, what I'm trying to say is that we're talking about a cartoon, and we're saying we got to change it because they got to get consent. But the only way she can wake up is if she get kissed by her true love. So how do you change that? Like, to me, this shouldn't even be a fucking conversation. It's the fucking fairy tale. It's been going on since 1937.
I get that.
Did you see Snow White as a child?
Not really. I saw it later on in life. But it was never when I was super
interested. So I can't ask you. So it doesn't matter. Because maybe if you would have seen it.
I know the story, but...
Maybe you would have seen it, then you would have been allowing random people to kiss you because... This is what this movie is portraying. Well,
no, because my parents did what you said, which is like we have those conversations.
But that's my point. So
I understand that. I'm not arguing that point.
You said that you think that you can see why they're doing whatever, and you agree with it.
I said I question why they. I literally texted you earlier because you're rolling your eyes. I literally texted you earlier today, and I said, earlier, and I said, I question why they would incorporate it into and make like they're adding it just now the scene. So I said, did you read the article?
No.
So the article said the addition. The Snow White attraction has been there. They just recently added the scene with the kiss to the attraction, to the end of the attraction. And so my question became, why would you add? So my question was. Not that I said like it's in alignment with the story. It was the first thing I said. That's the reason why they added it. Then. So I added, and so I said I understand it. I said my other side of it was like because you know that the climate that we live in. Were they thinking about it when they added it in the last year or two or whenever they added it? That was my question. I wasn't hard pressed like yes, consent this and the other. I was like you need to teach consent.
No,
we need to.
What they should do is they should have said I have the prince should have come out and said, I have consent to kiss her before I kiss her. Little 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds. Don't forget to get consent.
We should start be teaching our kids consent.
We definitely should, but I'm saying it's a fucking cartoon.
I get that.
No, you obviously you don't, because you said we should be teaching them, and I do understand that. But I can't see how a child is going to see this and be like, oh, I'm going to kiss all the bitches now. Little Timmy's going to be like, oh, next time it's nap time, I'm going to kiss her.
So you never heard of or seen, but let me say this. I'm not going to put all of the responsibility on one Disney movie or media or social media or film or any movies and TV and stuff like that on how children act. But have you ever heard of an instance where growing up or from friends or anything else like that where it was like, yeah, so-and-so was running around and touching girls inappropriately or kissing girls without, running up to girls and kissing them and stuff like that? I've heard of that. I've
heard of that too. And when that happens, that falls back on. But so the only reason why that kid did that was because
I literally just said I'm not putting the whole fault on that. But do you think
you said you're not putting the whole fault? So you are putting fault on it.
So what I'm saying
that's learned behavior.
It is. It could
it's
be
learned behavior.
Home.
And what probably happened is the child did it at home, and the parents laughed and thought it was like so cute. Look at them kissing this and all this other stuff. So yeah.
But do you think that sometimes, like, even if Snow White isn't the best example, but do you think that there are some problematic behaviors that sometimes are reinforced in like in the past, not necessarily as much currently, but in past like media and film? Yes. Like when they say like, oh, a boy's mean to you, or he's bullies you, or he hits you, he likes you. Like, no. Like I was told that as a child.
Who told you that? Your mother told you that?
No.
Who told you that?
I've had other adults tell me that when I would say so in school, when I would go up and say so and so hit me, and they were like, when a boy really hits you a bunch or whatever, or he does this and the other, it usually means
when you told your parents, what did they say?
They said that is they did say that. They were like, that's not the case. Well, and I will say this, actually, my mother said that. I'm not sure whether my father kind of said one or the other. If I'm being honest. I'm gonna
tell Tatum that if a boy hit her, knock him the fuck out.
Well, I understand that.
So.
Too,
and then now we won't have this issue.
Okay, but my point I'm trying to make is that do you think some of those behaviors that we saw in people or heard from people in the past could be, even if it's 1%, influenced by the things that they may have seen in TV and film or in songs or stuff like that?
I'm sure it is. So my thing is, if we're going to attack this, we need to attack everything. Every song that's out there that talks about anything, it needs to be removed.
So let me be clear about this. I'm not saying that we necessarily need to attack Snow White or whatever. What I'm saying though is that when situations like this come up, it brings up, I think, the whole. We have to look at them as isolated. You can look at them as individual instances, but we do need to have the conversation around sometimes the representations that happen in our media and in society, because whether we like it or not, they do have some level of influence or impact on the thinking of people, young and old. And so sometimes something that was okay back then may not be okay now. So maybe we do need to do a rewrite, or maybe and I'm not saying maybe not in this particular instance.
We need to rewrite everything.
You can look at it from case by case basis, but you can, or at the very least, there can be an acknowledgement. Like to an extent, what you said, there can be an acknowledgement. I know ultimately it comes down to.
Did they get consent to wipe Tony's brain? Nope.
No.
Nope. Throw the movie away. Throw the whole movie away. They don't get consent.
But that's like you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater with that.
No, I'm following the logic of everybody else who's stupid in the world. Like, let's throw it away. Did they get consent from his parents to take him to wherever they took him to wipe his brain out?
No, it doesn't depict that.
Okay.
No. So how come it's sometimes it's like you can look at, so what do you think should or could be changed in certain things in like media and film? Like nothing. Like if it came out before, like it's just like leave everything the way.
I'm not saying
you don't even ask the question. So the question is, do you think that they should anything that came out during the 30s, 40s, 50s, all the 80s, whatever, 90s, even early 2000s, things that as time progressed, if there are things that are out, do you think that there are, and they try to come back out, or people trying to still make money off of them, or they're trying to do remakes, do you think that they should just stick true to the entire story as it was, or do you think that some things should, depending on what it is, should be modified?
Of course things should be modified, but what are we modifying? We need to modify the things that really need to be modified. We're talking about fucking Snow White from 1937, and this was the story. And the story was, the way that she can be woken up to break the curse is to be kissed by your true love. I don't understand how that turns into, you gotta get consent.
So?
Because now the story doesn't make sense. So yes, if we're gonna do it.
So if they did a remake of Snow White, would you say that they should just leave that in or change it?
They should change the whole story. They shouldn't make that she gets poisoned by the evil witch or whoever she gets poisoned by, because did she get consent from, did the evil witch get consent to drug her?
Of course not.
Oh, well.
She offered her the poison apple. She didn't know it was poison.
Oh, no. So, what they should have done was Snow White's parents should have told her never take strange fruit from people.
And
so
from strangers. It's a
that should have
conversation.
been. So maybe you change the movie by adding all of that. So, you start off with Snow White as a young child and somebody offers her something. Her parents say, nope, you can't do that. You can't take stuff from people. And then now the story, And then you pick back up years later and stuff. I don't know. I don't know how you do it. Hop on pop. We should rewrite that. Did the kids get consent to hop on their father? Cat in the Hat. Did the kids get consent from their mother to allow a stranger in the house? Nope. So that's a problem right there too. You know what I mean? Home Alone. We should rewrite that. Mm-hmm. When they called the police should have came and grabbed Kevin out the house, mm-hmm. right? Because that's what would happen in real life. But it's a movie, so because it's a movie, it is what it is. But no, in 2021, everything has to have a reason for why it's happening, and it has to be, you got to get consent to do things, and you got to do all this other stuff, because a movie just can't be a movie anymore. A TV show can't be a TV show. None of that stuff.
Everything doesn't... I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but what I'm saying, all I said was that, even though Snow White, in this case, this particular example that started us, this conversation or dialogue you and I are having, even if that's not the hill to die on, we can agree that there are. I did not say that they were not. I did not say that there were not things that needed to be changed. I did not say that. I'm saying that Snow White is a fucking cartoon, and it's a fairy tale, and the fairy tale of it is she gets poisoned, and only the prince can help her. The fucking Snow White, she loses her glass slipper, right? Cinderella, yeah.
Or whoever. One of the white princesses. Mm-hmm. Did the prince get consent to pick up her shoe and put it on her foot and all the other stuff?
Okay.
How dare the prince pick up the glass slipper?
Okay. I mean, I think to an extent we are sort of saying the same thing, but I just think that we're coming from a different side of the conversation. But I think we do have an understanding. So even though we are quarreling about this, we do have an understanding about that, people can be excessive in both directions, in not wanting to budge on anything being changed from the past, and then also people being everything got to change, everything's a problem, everything's problematic, everything, and it's and not just saying you know what, this was, and not looking for something for what it is. I do understand that, and I hope you understand that I understand that.
I do understand that you understand it, but I also think that you agree. You think that there should be a way for them to say, "Hey, he got consent first." Like,
I would say if they did, and I was thinking about it, like they did live action versions of like a live action version of Snow White or whatever, but it was definitely
they better not do it.
They did it already. It was Snow White and the Huntsman and all that stuff. They did it like in maybe 7.
You said live action?
It was a live. It had like
live action movie.
Yeah, it was a live action like Snow White, but they did it was like a very like kind of adult take on it or whatever. So I never seen it, but I know that they had it.
Was there a kissing scene in there?
I didn't see it, so I don't know. It was with Charlize Theron. It was with Kristen Stewart.
Well, if it's in there, they got to listen. You got to get consent.
So I said, I was like, so like you said, we can change stuff moving forward, right? And then I said, I get that. That's why I said I question why they chose to add it now, like, and
they probably added it because it's a part of the story and it's a way to end the fucking story.
And I get that. I said that's all I'm saying. My only question was like, it's kind of like if I know it's going to be a problem, why would I put it in there? But I understand the argument too because it is. They probably didn't
think that it was a problem because it's the fucking story.
Okay then, but okay.
You're saying that they should have. You're saying that because they didn't have it in there already, they should have never added it. They probably was like, "Yo, it's COVID. How can we reboost this shit up? We're gonna finish out this story." They probably always wanted to do the shit, didn't have the time. Excuse me. When it was created, and it was like, "Yo, yeah, it's COVID. We're gonna add this shit in." And now someone's like, "Oh, wait, where's the consent?"
I get it, and I said to you,
we're
was like,
fucking doomed as people.
We're not doomed.
We are.
Like we're doomed for a lot of other reasons, but this isn't necessarily one of them.
Well, obviously, it made fucking headlines. Like, this shouldn't even be a fucking story. It's a fucking story. Like, it's. I'm just. I don't know. I truly do not know.
I mean, like I said, ultimately, like, no matter what is depicted, altered, changed, left in the things that we consume in entertainment, it's ultimately for us to still have the conversations and with our children, with each other, about what was great about this film, and then also what things might have like given us pause or might be problematic, and we have those conversations because ultimately some people are going to say it's entertainment, it's art. That argument can be made too, so they're going to have it represented however, and we have a choice. And the beautiful thing about entertainment sometimes is that we have a choice in what we consume. So we don't have to consume something if we hear or learn that there's something in there that we are not necessarily in agreement with. We don't have to consume or expose our children or show our children certain things.
You're right.
If we think
that's the choice. It's the same way how we allow our children to believe in Santa Claus and there's other parents who don't. Mm-hmm. Like, everything is a choice. But my thing is that there's different battles. My thing is it's just getting so fucking meticulous about everything. Next, Green Eggs and Hams. The dude, what's his name? Sam I Am? Is that his name? Or?
Yeah, that's one of the characters.
Yep. So Sam I Am tries to offer an unnamed character a plate of green eggs and ham. So Sam I Am was he was coercing him, like, right?
Or like harassing him if you want to.
So we should get rid of that book. Hey, cancel culture, please, on your next cancel Green Eggs and Hams. But
that one.
What?
No, I'm laughing because I'm like the publishers of like Dr. Seuss books actually removed like 6 books that they said were problematic because of the depictions they had, and people lost their fucking mind. And those were actually like legit, like they were like racist depictions of like Chinese people and African people.
And that makes sense.
I get that too, but you would see how many people were going down this rabbit hole. Like, well, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna do everything, and did it instead of people taking the time to really like look at it from the lens of these are the ones that are truly problematic. And I get that
because people are canceling any and everything.
But
if you smile too hard, it's a problem.
People toss the word cancel around for everything, but my shit don't even really get canceled. It's a buzzword that people use when somebody calls something out, and sometimes some shit does deserve to be canceled, and sometimes some shit is just like it was just a bad it was a bad choice or whatever. But most people or things or whatever, I would say 85% to 90% of the time bounce back from that. It's a bad hit. It's a hit or blow to your brand or your type or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're out for the count forever. There are things that people have done that are egregious, that are flat out fucking illegal. And they still, and even though they might be canceled in like the mainstream, there are still people who will die on hills to support these people or not. And then, so no one is ever really truly canceled. Like what is one entity, company, person, movie, whatever that we have truly 150% canceled? If you could tell me, please enlighten me.
That we've you've canceled R. Kelly.
As an individual, society has not, because there's people that still blast his music. There's still people who there are people who are sitting here sending him money to his commissary.
There's never going to be 100%. That's why everybody
exactly.
But my thing is that this was not it. So that's what I'm saying. You can see both sides on this, and this was one of the things that I can't believe that this is a fucking article. I can't believe that people are really up in arms about Snow White in this story. So it was okay for Snow White and her to be... this shit is just... I'm flabbergasted.
I see.
I just can't believe that we're really doing... Like I said, so it should be everything. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the long pause.
It's okay.
I just don't get it. So...
I understand it too, and there have been times where I'm like,
for school's going to be like for gym. Did you get consent from the child to participate? Like,
but I mean, in some instances, in not necessarily like gym, the class, but like in sports and stuff like that, you have to have parental consent to participate in extracurricular activities.
No, I'm saying that. Okay, the parent could have said yes, and the child could say no. Now what? I don't want to do this. My parents signed me up for this. I don't want to do it.
Then it's a conversation that the educator has with the parent, and then the parent and the child have to figure it out. I'm not gonna you're talking to somebody who works in education.
No, I get that. I'm just like I said. We are doomed as a society if this is the rabbit hole we're gonna go through, because no matter what, there's always gonna be something where did this person get consent or not.
Listen,
when Bucky was fighting, what are the women names?
The Dora Milaje.
Did they get consent to take his arm off?
Well, depending on who you ask, they'll say that was their property, so they were just taking it back. That was literally that was like memes and stuff like that. Like that was like the whole thing, because it was vibranium and all that stuff like that. But ultimately, I'm committed to trying most times to try and like see from both sides. I can say that like the Snow White one is a stretch, is pushing it, because it is in alignment to the story. I had questions, and then it led us down a conversation about where the stuff is going. If our state of the world is doomed, this is like a fraction of the reason why, because there's so many other more like bigger and pressing things going on in the world that, as far as like
we are still hate and evil, racially attacked, but we want to talk about fucking consent. The same people who talk about consent, how about they talk about black people who are being targeted?
Well, it doesn't mean that those people aren't. It just doesn't mean, it just like those things are both important. Now, don't get me wrong.
They're both important.
Like, I'm not saying that
this consent I'm not saying on the same level. Important as fucking.
No. I'm not saying the Snow White story. I'm saying the concept of consent. The concept of consent is something that's important. Black Lives Matter to me is way more important, of course. But it doesn't mean that like than that one. But it's like these are things that have to be part of conversation. We would have a conversation both with Tatum about Black lives and about consent at some point, at one point or another, when the appropriate time arises, because they're both important topics that you should cover.
Or if she asks us about it, then you'll just go over it.
That's passive aggressive, and that's not fair.
Well, you just made the assumption that you just said that we would talk about it, but you've made that conversation without me already, so it's not.
And I'm saying to you that your statement back to me was passive aggressive, because we would have those conversations about if we had an intentional sit down with our daughter. That would not be something that unless we agreed and talked about it before that one of us would talk to her, that we would both talk to her.
Okay.
An honest mistake I made in a 90-second conversation and question Q&A session I had with her the other day that definitely escaped my mind until we were having this conversation is not the same as us having an intentional sit down with Tatum about important ass topics like Black lives or interacting with the police or whatever you want to encapsulate under being a Black person in America, and things like consent when it comes to her own body autonomy and things like that. So please do not try to lump all of that together, because that's not fair. And so we can move past that one, or we can have a conversation offline about that again, because again, I fully understand where you're coming from, and I do apologize, and I understand that how that could be, how you would feel about that. And then I want to convey again, like, it was unintentional and it was not done to be secretive or anything else like that. It just happened, and I just moved on from it. But like, please don't be passive aggressive about it when I thought we had moved on from that part of the conversation, and when you bring it back up, you're saying that, because I feel like that's unfair.
I feel like it's unfair for you to say that we're going to have a conversation when, again, you've had conversations without me. So you can't speak for me now. You can't lump me in now when you already made your decision.
But I can't learn from a mistake and then say that that we or I will do things better.
I was being passive aggressive. You got it.
Okay. Thank you. But, well, Snow White, either way, the attraction is there. And, I am interested to see what else comes from it. But I am also, my final thought is, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on. I just, know that I just was trying to kind of offer up a different lens or perspective of it, because even though that may not be the example or the best test case for some of the arguments or the points I was trying to make, which I can understand that, I think that, like, we have to kind of look at things like big picture, because they do come up. They will continue to come up as people reach back.
This wasn't it, and that's the hill I'm gonna die on. This was not it. This won't be it. And if that's the case, then the fucking story needs to be demolished. Again, we can go through everything's gonna have consent scenes or non-consent or negative portrayals. So we should just cancel everything. Nothing should be available, because again, if you show a scene and it has someone getting raped or have someone not getting consent, are we gonna say, "Oh, stop the movie now"? You're not giving consent. Like,
well, I think the differences between that is if there's like a rape scene, which we've seen movies like that, and the Snow White example is that.
Go ahead.
Is that a rape scene? The message is being conveyed that, like, this is a non-consensual act, whereas with Snow White, if the argument could be made that it's being romanticized, like, and so that's the difference. A violent rape is not the same as somebody trying to, like, romanticize something.
Because in the fucking story, the only way she would ever wake up was by being kissed. That's how it was written.
And I get that. All I'm saying is that you can't.
That is the story. So again, you're trying to play both sides. I see both sides on other stuff. This was not it. This was not it.
What I'm saying, all I'm saying now at this point is that the comparison between a violent rape and a children's movie, you can't. Like, I don't think you can make that comparison, because one is being romanticized.
So let's go back to The Incredibles. When they stole the little boy and they wiped his mind, did they get consent? They did not. Let's cancel that shit. Okay. In Monsters, Inc. Mm-hmm. The first one, yeah, because Monster University is the second one. Mm-hmm. Monsters, Inc. When he kissed his girlfriend, did he get consent? When she was fussing at him? Nope. Let's cancel that bitch too.
Okay.
That doesn't sound ridiculous?
No, I don't disagree with you in the fact that those are ridiculous, because there's a whole context there.
Like I said, we are doomed. What I'm going to tell people is you raise your children the best way that you can, and you instill this stuff. If your child watches this and they start kissing people or whatever, and you don't say something, then you're the problem. There's no reason why a children's story has to be made into this sexual thing. It's a fucking fairy tale that's been going around, and this has never been a problem. Ain't nobody since 1937 until now have been like, wait, he kissed her without consent. Mm-hmm. No, because you know why? Because most people are like, it's the fucking story. The story is this, and it is what it is. We're not sexualizing it, but now we're sexualizing everything. And again, social media and everybody has a say, so everyone has a fucking opinion, and not everyone's opinion is right. And that's my biggest thing. My biggest thing is that,
and we've been on both. We're not doomed, yeah. But we've been. If we are doomed, this ain't the reason that we're doomed. Snow White ain't it? But
okay, for you it's not. But we are doomed. So
I mean, okay, if that's the route you want to take with it. But that's all I have to add to this conversation. I think we definitely gave people their money's worth as far as a quarrel today. Is there anything else you'd like to add or any final thoughts?
Nope.
All right, y'all. Well, I thank you and we thank you for listening to another episode of Lovers Quarrel. As always, you know you can find us on Twitter at Lovers Quarrel 7, on Instagram at Lovers Quarrel Show, and email us your thoughts, questions, comments, heartaches at loversquarrelshow@gmail.com. And as always, I am your girl Dani.
And I'm your guy TJ.
And you know that we fuss.
We fight, but we love.
Bye.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.